Hello! So for the part 2 of this tutorial, we'll be discussing about movement and attack basics, which includes character movement, weapon damage, enemy health, and destroying objects for item drops. Let's get to it. Okay, so first is we're gonna make the player. So to create the player, we have to create a capsule and ensure that the capsule has a collider and also a rigid body, since the player will be interacting with most of the objects in our space, and create another empty object. So we'll name this player, and this object will be the parent of our capsule. Also, we have to add our camera. So why we're gonna add our camera? Since we're going third person, we will want the camera to follow wherever the player is. So it's important to keep these two together. So let's fix our capsule a bit. So we will want it to be touching the ground. And since it has a rigid body, it will be standing on the ground like normally, like any player should be. And also don't forget, we will want to freeze the rotation and the position of our capsule, because there will be tendencies that it will fall. So we will want to just freeze the rotation and the position, so it will just stay straight, or as if it's standing. So now we have our player here and our capsule and our camera. We will want it to move, because for now our character isn't moving in any way, it's just standing. So we will want our player to be moving. So I'll be adding a script which is player movement, which I'll explain in a bit. Okay, now that we have set up our player and inserted our script in the inspector, let's see our script, player movement script. So it is important that our class name is the same as our script name, so it won't be confusing, especially if you're gonna work with multiple scripts for a game. This will help. And make sure that it is specified for what it does. So we have some values. So walk speed, run speed, jump power, gravity, look speed, and look X limit. So that's for the speed of the cursor looking left and right, and also the limit of how far it can look from left to right. Default height, that's for the landing when the player jumps. So our direction, vector 3, since we're 3D. Then character controller. Also, speaking of character controller, you might be wondering how did the character controller just pop in our inspector when we inserted our character or player movement script. It's because of this one. So we're telling that it is a requirement to add a character controller component in our inspector. So moving on, we have in our start method our character controller being initialized, and also our cursor. So we set our cursor locked in the middle of the screen when the player clicks the screen, and also making the cursor invisible. So in our update method, so this is where mostly of the calculations for the movement goes. So basically here, this is where we calculate and see if the player is walking or running, and um, if what direction they're going, and everything is computed to move direction. And here we have our jump logic. So if the player clicks jump or the space bar, and can be seen that they're moving and the character controller is grounded, so meaning they're just in the ground, they can jump. Otherwise, they'll be as is. So it will not move to the direction Y. So here we have the gravity. So if the character controller is not seen on the ground or is not grounded, so gravity will be applied, especially when going down once the character jumped. And also if not, then the character controller will reset and the walk speed and run speed will return as default. Then here is the cursor. So it's computing whether the cursor is moving left and right, and it limits the how far the player can move left and right. And that's it. Now back to Unity. Okay, now that we're back in our Unity, let's just test it out if our player will move and will jump. So if we click the screen, the cursor disappears, and also we're looking from left to right, so only within the x-axis, because there's no much reason for us to look up, so we only set up for x-axis. And then as you can see, we can walk, we can run, we're moving around, we're also interacting with, well, not interacting but bumping with other objects, and we can also jump, so we can jump around the objects. So now that we can see that our player can move, it is also essential in our survival game that we can attack. So we'll move to that. Okay, so in order to attack, of course, we're gonna need a weapon. So let's create an object that will represent us our weapon. So let's say like something like this will suffice for now. Maybe bend it a little, and then we'll change the color so you guys can see. So we're gonna make it black so it looks like a gun, but I would like to think that it is a sword. So okay, it has a collider, which is good, so we're gonna rename it into sword, or you can just rename it in any melee weapon that you want. So we'll stick it to player, so it will move around with the player. So it should be something iron. Okay. So what's lacking now is a script for it to cause damage, because for now we're just holding it, so it's not causing any damage. So we'll move on to that. Okay, now that we have a weapon, we should assign a script for it to cause any damage to our objects. So melee attack, oh wait, there, melee attack, we'll put it in the inspector. So let's open the script. So again, basically what this script does is causing damage to objects, and as you can see here, we have the values attack distance and damage. So for now we'll stick with 10 damage, and the attack distance, we might need to change that in the inspector, which I'll show later on. since one might be too small for our raycast to detect if it's colliding with any colliders. So we'll change that later on. So in our update method, here we have an if statement. So if the player clicks the left button or fire 1, it will call the attack function. So this is the attack function. So here basically it gets the position of how far the weapon will move forward in order for the raycast to detect if it hits in any colliders, and if it does hit and detects any colliders near, that is tagged based on our if statement. So if it hits a collider, that is tagged as resources, or as an enemy, it will cause damage to the enemy or the resource. So as you can see, we have an interface here, which I'll explain later on once we assign a health script for the resource or for the enemy. So keep in mind for this interface as we go through this tutorial. Okay, now that we're back in Unity, we can try out our weapon and if it will cause any damage. So, oh wait, I just realized, so I did so I call it is melee attack. So like I said a while ago, it is preferred that we name our class the same as our script so we won't get confused. So we're gonna name this melee attack. Oh, whoops. Okay, so no errors, so we're good. Okay, so now that we have a weapon, a working weapon, hopefully we can test out from these objects. I went ahead and made enemies and inserted their enemy health script, but for the sake of teaching you guys, I'll create another one. So we're gonna make another 3D object. So let's stick with sphere. Oh, whoops. So sample enemy or resource. Okay, and then we're gonna enlarge it a bit and put it beside the other ones. So it is important it has a collider, so it has its own collider. Okay, we'll stick with white. I'll put it here. I like to keep it organized so they're beside each other. Okay, and then we'll insert our enemy health script. So we're gonna put it here. So as you can see, it has a health of 50, which is by default in our script. Object to drop and drop count. I'll explain that once we open our script. Enemy health. Okay, so remember the interface that I have discussed a while ago from our melee attack script? This one. So this applies here in our enemy health script, as you can see here. And we have, again, this is also modular. So pretty much we'll go through this tutorial and we'll be using scripts that we made as modular. So it will be, you can easily reuse it for other objects and for other purposes. So it's quite of a best practice to do modular scripts, especially if you're working with like multiple objects that just functions like the same. So you won't have to like repeatedly do scripts and so on. So Default is 50 health, and so this game object to drop. So if like you're working on objects that if you destroy it, it will drop something. So this is the game object for those, and also the game drop count is how many objects that it will drop when you destroy an object or an enemy. So take damage function. So this is from our interface. So the damage that the weapon the weapon cost will be applied here in our enemy health script. So health minus amount. So amount of damage. So it keeps decrementing. It keeps reducing the health that we set, which is let's say 50. So by 10. So 40, 30, 20, and so on every time the player attacks this object. Then if the health reaches 0, it will call the die function, which is here. So the object will be destroyed, and also it will call the drop resources function, which is below here, which basically is where an object is instantiated once the object is destroyed. So it kind of looks like it drops something once upon being destroyed. So we have a for loop here, so it depends on how many you assign that drop count. So if it's 1, then it will only drop 1, or it will only instantiate once. So if it's 2, it will instantiate twice, and so on and so forth. Game object, drop object, instantiate, so the object that will drop, and it will get the position of where the object was destroyed for it to drop. And yeah, that's it for enemy health. Okay, so we're back in Unity once more. So we have our enemy and our enemy health script. So what we lack here is the object that it will drop once we destroyed this. So let's create another object. So let's say I want a cube this time. So cube. So let's just name this drop, and then we'll change the color into something else. Let's say, let's say a black cube, a black box. Okay, so that should be okay. Maybe we'll add the rigid body, so it will be more as if it really dropped instead of just staying in air. So drop, and then we have to make it as a prefab. So we'll make it a prefab. Then you can delete, because it doesn't have to be shown or appear in our space for now, because we want it to appear once we destroyed the circle. So for that to happen, you will want to assign the object that you want as a drop item. So let's assign, so drop, then another one drop. I should have made the circles as a prefab, but for the sake of the tutorial, let's keep it as is. Also the health, as you can see, the health also is different. So let's make this 30. Okay, then there, and let's make the drop count of these 2, so that you can see the difference of the drops and the damage that we can do in each sphere. Okay. Oh wait, actually let's change also the attack distance. I just remembered. So let's set it at least around like 15 or 10. I think 10 is good. Because I have a feeling that our attack distance is too small. So it might not reach the collider of the spheres. So we're gonna make it 10. Okay, let's try it out. Okay, so we're moving, we're jumping. We have our, let's say, enemies or like resources. So click there. Okay, it spawned 2. It initiated 2 cubes. That's good. Then oh, why isn't this working? Oh no. Okay, I'm not sure why it isn't working on this one. Hold on. Okay, I now figure out why. Okay, this is important. We have to tag it as enemy or resource, because if you remember in our code, we did an if statement if the collider is tagged as enemy or if it tags as resource. So it didn't work on the white sphere because I didn't tag it as enemy or a resource. This is like a happy accident moment. So it's kind of a good thing for this tutorial. So let's try again. And also the attack distance, I changed it to 10. I forgot to record that part, but I changed it. This was 1, but I changed it to 10. So it will have more distance on detecting the colliders of our objects. So maybe 15. I'll change it to 15. Then we play. I want to make okay, so that's 2 clicks. That's 3. Then this is 50 HP, so it should be like around 5 clicks. Okay, so there, it spawned items. There. And in terms of in a survival game, so this is really important because in a survival game there'll be like drops like for materials, food, and for like items and so on and so forth. So optionally, you can add animations so that your character or your weapon will look more alive. So when moving or attacking are on idle or when you see your weapon. But at least for now, you're one step ahead on creating your own survival game. Yippee! So thank you so much for watching our tutorial and hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye!